So just to quickly explain where we are so you understand what you're seeing, the actual Golden Triangle as a physical location is about, I don't know, 10 meters in front of me, just off the land into the water. That peninsula right there, that little thing jutting out, is the end of Myanmar. All the land behind it is Myanmar. On that side, this is the Mekong River. On that side of the Mekong is Laos, and our feet are on the ground in Thailand at the moment. So yeah, welcome to the Golden Triangle. For the last half century, no piece of land has been as notorious, as feared and consequential as the Golden Triangle. The mountains of northern Thailand, Laos, and Shan State, Myanmar. Even now, it's a powder keg known for cartels, civil wars, and a shadow economy outside international oversight. But the Golden Triangle is also right in the middle of one of the planet's most fascinating regions, home to hill tribes, ancient cultures, and mind-blowing culinary secrets. From a food perspective, there might not be a more rewarding place to explore anywhere, because thanks to its reputation and wild landscape, the whole world has stayed away, and the secrets are still right there, waiting to be discovered. So we're diving in, heading deep into the Himalayan foothills, finding ourselves thrown into a land unlike anywhere else, and following the road wherever it might lead. This is our story of a food trip into the heart of the Golden Triangle. Today on OTR. Soy milk, doujiang. Doujiang, youtiao?
Youtiao, yes.
All right, I forgot. I'm still getting my bearings. It's 6 o'clock in the morning. I forgot that we're not in Thailand. We're in China now. Youtiao and doujiang. So this is going to be soybean milk. This is the breakfast in China's north. So in Beijing, this is breakfast. I guess in the mountains of Yunnan also. Anybody else want one, or is this just me? This is just such a triggering thing for me. You're gonna have one too? Bring it back to the hotel? Okay. Liang.
Every morning right after sunrise, the 8,000 or so residents of Mae Salong descend on one small alley in the center of town, bringing the day's harvest and fresh-made delicacies.
新鲜的豆腐。
对。
是你自己做是吧？
对。
你？还有这个是豆浆还是花生？
豆浆。
这是豆浆。This is crazy. People making their own homemade tofu here. I mean, it's not crazy. It's just rare. You don't see it very often at village markets outside of southern China. You ever tried fresh tofu, like homemade tofu straight out? You never tried it? Okay, 要买一包。20块一包。Okay.
A few years ago, I heard a story about Mae Salong, a place that as a Chinese chef I had to come see for myself. Because no matter what it looks like, this is not China.
这4个味道现在都有。Okay, Carol, Dennis, most important question of the morning. We have the pork bun, we have coconut, we have black bean, and we have custard. Do you want sweet? Do you want savory? Pork? 猪肉要2个，椰子给我1个吧。
The village of Mae Salong is actually in northern Thailand, 2 countries removed from where it belongs. And how it came to be here, well, that is quite a story. It starts in 1949 at the end of China's Civil War, with the communists in power and the losing side, the Kuomintang or KMT, fleeing to Taiwan in exile. But in the Yunnan Mountains far to the southwest, one group of KMT soldiers refused to surrender and just kept on fighting. Finally, Mao had enough and sent a massive force into Yunnan to crush the rebellion. In February 1950, Mao's army declared victory, and that was that. or so everyone believed. But then a few months later, Chiang Kai-shek, the KMT's leader, received a telegram in Taipei, word coming in from the mountains of Shan State, Myanmar, that the 93rd Division was standing by, waiting for orders and more ammunition. Now, the Kuomintang did not know what to do with this message. After all, the war was over. But the US CIA came up with a plan. They assumed that China was distracted by the outbreak of war in Korea, so they sent a team of special forces into the Burmese jungle carrying a huge cache of weapons, and together in June 1951, they all came charging back into China, where they were massacred, the survivors fleeing back into Shan State. This became an international incident, the Burmese government now aware of the soldiers on their land, thousands of troops along with their families in hiding along the Yunnan border. They raised a protest to the United Nations, the US and Taiwan both denying any knowledge of the situation and cutting off contact with the KMT. Meanwhile, the 93rd simply charged back into China and tried again, actually capturing much of southern Yunnan before one more time being pushed back. Finally, in 1954, the US agreed to send helicopters to evacuate the soldiers and bring them to Taiwan. Around half of the men left, but the rest refused and disappeared into the jungle with the Burmese military in pursuit. And that would be the last anyone would hear about the 93rd Division for a very long time. In 1982, Bo Yang, a Taiwanese author who'd long written books about what he imagined might have happened to the so-called Lost Army, decided to see if he could follow their trail. In the end, he would find them and introduce the world to Mae Salong. But in these mountains, well, he would find a lot more than the 93rd Division of the KMT.
ใช่ครับก็คือเป็นดินแดนเกี่ยวกับฝิ่นนี่ก็จะอยู่บนดอยเดี๋ยวแล้วก็ช่วงผาหมีผาฮีตั้งแต่แม่ฟ้าหลวงอำเภอแม่ฟ้าหลวงเทือกเขาเนี่ยจะยาวเลยครับจะมีเขตรอยต่อติดกับว้าแดงที่อยู่ฝั่งของพม่าก็จะเป็นพื้นที่ล่อแหลมให้สามารถทั้งขนทั้งอะไรกันเข้ามาในประเทศไทยทะลักเข้ามาเยอะแยะมากมายครับอยู่ตามตะเข็บแนวชายแดนซึ่งอยู่บนดอยแล้วก็เดี๋ยวนี้ก็เริ่มมีเจ้าหน้าที่เข้าไปควบคุมแต่ก็ยังมียาเสพติดที่ลักลอบขนเข้ามากันเยอะอยู่ครับจับได้รายวันทุกวันนะครับ 2-3 ล้าน10 ล้านเม็ดจับได้เรื่อยๆเลยครับวิสามันก็มีครับเยอะแยะไปหมดครับเป็นพื้นที่สีแดงตั้งแต่แนวตะเข็บชายแดนแม่สายแม่สลองยาวเลยครับครับผม
เทียบกับสมัยก่อนเดี๋ยวนี้มันปลอดภัย
พื้นที่นี้ปลอดภัยครับเพียงแต่ว่าชาวบ้านที่เขาขนหรือว่าเขาทำฝิ่นทำยาเสพติดเขาจะไม่ยุ่งเกี่ยวกับนักท่องเที่ยวหรือว่าทำร้ายร่างกายหรือว่าปล้นฆ่าอะไรเนี้ยจะไม่มีคดีครับก็คือเขาแค่จะขนยาหรือไม่ก็ลักลอบเข้าเมืองแบบผิดกฎหมายประมาณนี้ครับแต่ว่าเป็นพื้นที่ที่ปลอดภัยครับครับผม
So yeah, welcome to our food trip. I guess it's good news that our driver doesn't think we're gonna get robbed or murdered, although to be fair, that is kind of the baseline expectation we usually look for in a Chinese restaurant. The truth is, we've been set on visiting Mae Salong for a long time. We know we're going to a place with a fascinating story and cuisine because we found it a few years ago. Of all things, on a shoot we did at the Bangkok airport. In that video, we walked into what we thought was a Chinese restaurant in a nearby industrial park. But it wasn't like any Chinese place I'd ever been before. There was stuff from Yunnan, but also dishes that are Thai, Burmese, and some completely unrecognizable. As a career Chinese chef, I asked the owner what the deal was, and she said, "This is the food of a place called Mae Salong." She even told us about the Lost Army, and about how she and her husband had left for Bangkok when things got bad in the Golden Triangle. There was a time when Mae Salong was completely off limits. Actually, a very long time. But that time is not now, so again, welcome to our food trip. right, I just want to give you a quick bit of context since we've been in the car now for an hour and a half or so, an hour 15 minutes, and we are way up, like way up. We've just done this kind of winding path through the mountains. Our ears have started popping, like the views are crazy, and we are in the Golden Triangle. You think about, like, you know, the lost army, but also, you know, for generations, the opium smugglers, the heroin smugglers, the people who were, you know, in that trade here. Like, you can imagine before the things got cleaned up and these roads were paved, like just how remote this is. We are surrounded by high peaks everywhere. I can't really tell where Thailand ends and Myanmar begins, you know, but like it's if you imagine Thailand, and we're talking about how we're in northern Thailand, you can't picture, you know, when the Chinese soldiers came here from the Kuomintang, you know, it's not like they arrived in Thailand with, you know, everybody Sawadee Hub, and, you know, and like the temples and Thai culture and, you know, pad kapow restaurants everywhere. Like, this is very much ethnic hill tribe country. You know, these are like the Akha, the Karen, like this is little pockets throughout these mountains of these old, really sort of not mainstream Thai culture, ethnic hill tribes, you know, and I think we're getting to a coffee shop at the viewpoint. Perfect timing. We're gonna try and wrap our mind around this a little bit more as we get closer, but for now, let's stop and grab a coffee and just check out the view. When Bo Yang arrived in these mountains in 1982, there were no roads, just rough trails leading through harsh terrain. And there were no tea plantations, the hillsides covered in dense jungle and opium farms. The heroes of the Kuomintang existed in a world without electricity or running water, surviving on whatever food they could provide for themselves. So after making contact, Yang went to work. On his return to Taiwan, he raised awareness of the living situation of the 93rd Army, and soon enough the whole island rallied in support. NGOs were formed to haul aid, construction equipment, and medical supplies, and teachers came as volunteers to work in the makeshift schools. By the end of the 1980s, this road had been cleared, and after its paving in the early 2000s, construction began on a massive structure right at the entrance to the village of Mae Salong, a memorial to the 93rd Division, to this day the only public building outside Taiwan, financed at least in part by the Taiwanese army. Okay, so we walked around the museum, we met the caretaker, and we met the lady who has the tea shop right outside. Both of them are third generation, descended from the Lost Army. Both of them, the first two people we've spoken to, but neither of them are comfortable telling their stories on camera. The gentleman who's the caretaker of the facilities here at the shrine, I think he didn't want to overstep his authority because he's not the boss, he's the caretaker, and was a little bit nervous about being on camera. We're not going to push that. Lady here, she says, well, I'm the third generation, I'm too young, I don't know all the stories very well. Both of them have given us some names in the town. I've tried to make some phone calls, we haven't connected with anybody yet, but you know, this is OTR. Typically, like, if we're gonna ever find any true stories, it starts with food, so let's just get lunch and see where that takes us. Restaurant first. You guys wanna eat? Carol, hungry? Okay. I think for good luck, I'm gonna buy a charm to see if that can get us through the rest of the shoot. We need some luck, so
อันเนี้ยจุ๋ย
okay.
เนี่ยจุ๋ย
Okay, this is very nice. Yes.
เฮ้ยทาเรื่องอะไรดิ
Can you ask her what group she's from? What her ethnic group is?
เขาถามว่ามาจากเผ่าไหนครับ
พ่ออาขาด
Akha.
อาขาด
Okay. Does she know if there's a place we can find Akha
ยันน่ะอย่างนี้
meal? Okay, this is in no way related to our mission of understanding the Lost Battalion. However, this is still Hill Tribe territory, and all around us is farms and old homesteads belonging to a tribe called the Akha. So we ran into a lady who's selling trinkets. She's Akha, her sister's Akha. We asked if there's a place we can find Akha food, which is not part of our mission, but this is OTR. We are off the rails, or whatever the abbreviation stands for today. We're following her. We don't know where she's leading us, but so it begins here in Mae Salong. Hello, Hab.
อันนี้ปันนี่ก็อยู่เนี่ยปันนี่ก็อยู่นี่ไผ่ที่เนี่ย
We've had cherries. We
เชอ
have
รี่
yeah,
เชอรี่
taro.
จี้ไหม
It's okay. It's okay. Thank you. I am losing my guide.
In the end, it turned out the destination our host had in mind was just the town's only karaoke bar, where the owner offered to set up a microphone for us to sing. But we were hungry and had to apologize and continue on our way.
How do I say thank you? Kapun maka Akha. How do I say?
ขอบคุณเนี่ยก็อุดุธรรมา
Udutama.
อุดุธรรมา
Udutama. Okay, Udutama.
นี่ลึกเทนนิสเลยเนี่ย
เดี๋ยวขากลับเดี๋ยวขากลับ
เดินเลย
We're gonna try and start at the obvious spot. So I think I'm following a pin to Imm Phochana, which is the one kind of place that everybody who comes to Mae Salong has to try. There's another spot that looks fantastic that's just down the hill, but like it's 12:30 in the afternoon. It's actually not that late. It just feels like we've been kind of trying to get our bearings for quite some time. Let's start with lunch and figure it out from there. So Imm Phochana, I believe, is somewhere up this way.
The only restaurant in Mae Salong that's on the tourist map is a place called Imm Phochana, apparently considered the best spot in Chiang Rai province for authentic Chinese food. It's quite an institution, the one place everyone stops on a day of checking out the tea plantations. I'm a little bit skeptical. The menu, at least online, looks nothing like the spot we found 3 years ago near the airport, and more like a standard Chinese restaurant. But since our only other idea is going back to the karaoke bar, we'll give it a try.
This is the hot spot in town, the one place everybody goes to. We are the only table here. It's a very small village. So far, I'm really enjoying being here, but I'm very confused about a lot of things. Let's see if food sorts it out for us. Hello?
อย่างน้ำมันหอยนี่ใครก็ทำเป็นถ้าคนที่ทำอาหารอยู่แล้วเราทำอาหารให้พ่อแม่เรากินอยู่แล้วใช่ไหมเราก็ศึกษาได้เป็ดเนี่ยเอาของเขามาผัดหมี่ของเขาผัดน้ำมันหอยนี่เราก็เข้าใจเราทำได้
Well, Alright, it turns out the reason the food at Imm Phochana doesn't look like what we expected is this is not a local restaurant. It's primarily Sichuan with a few Yunnan dishes to please any tourists in the know. The owner, Mrs. Im, well, she's not even Chinese, she's from southern Thailand, moving here with her husband to set up a business after the road opened.
แฟนที่เป็นกุ๊กเสฉวนเขา
เล่าให้ฟัง
เขาทำอาหารเสฉวนอยู่เจอที่โรงแรมเอเชียไงโรงแรมเอเชียเขามีหลายแผนกไงเจ๊ที่จริงเป็นไม่ได้เป็นกุ๊กเนาะเจ๊เป็นอะไรพนักงานต้อนรับห้องอาหารเปลี่ยนแปลงเหรอมีบ้านเรือนเมื่อก่อนเป็นหญ้าคาเยอะเดี๋ยวนี้เป็นตึกเยอะเพราะว่าคนไปทำงานต่างประเทศเยอะลูกหลานเขาอะโดยมากพวกนี้เขาจะนั่นมีไอ้สัญญาอยู่กับไต้หวันไม่ใช่เหรอไต้หวันช่วยเหลือก็ไปนี่โดยมากเอาชนเผ่าพวกนี้ที่มาอยู่แล้วกันเนาะเพราะว่าไอ้กลุ่ม93มาเจ๊จะไม่ค่อยถนัดแต่รู้ว่าเป็นกองพล93ที่เขาอพยพมาจากพม่าใช่ไหมมาเป็นแนวกันชนชายแดนเขาเรียกอะไรอะแนวกันชนใช่ไหมมาเป็นเนี่ยเขาเอามาให้เราเนี่ยเป็นคนจีนยูนานอ่ะเขาเรียกคนจีนยูนานเข้ามาเยอะแล้วก็มันมีเมื่อก่อนมันมีก่อนก็คือมีอาคาใช่ไหมมูเซอร์ที่เยอะอยู่นะที่เป็นเผ่าเดิมอยู่ตรงเนี้ยมี2เผ่านี่ที่เยอะเสร็จแล้วพอคนจีนเข้ามาใช่ไหมพวกนั้นก็ร่อนถอยลงพื้นราบไงคนจีนเขานิยมอะไรนะพื้นภูมิประเทศเขาอ่ะเขาชำนาญภูเขาไม่ใช่เหรอจีนประเภทนี้ใช่ไหมที่เขาเป็นทหารมานะ
All right, I'm going to serve myself a little bit of food. And then, so we have the plot thickens. So the most famous restaurant in town is actually not owned by somebody descended from the Lost Army, but it's still the most famous restaurant in town. And we're on a wild goose chase. This is our mission for the day. We'll see how successful we can be. But right now, all we care about is food, and this looks fantastic. We'll call this a fusion. I wouldn't say that this is like what you'd find necessarily in Yunnan. Hopefully we're going to find some of that later. But it's kind of pan-Chinese. We have smoked duck. We have a stir-fried mushroom dish. We have, I think that's water morning glory, which I didn't order, but it's on the table and we're going to eat it. We have mantou, steamed bread, and Imm Phochana, the famous restaurant, kind of the center of the town. The main thing that we've kind of the takeaway of being here is that everybody keeps telling us if we really want to learn anything about this story, we need to find the boss of the village. And apparently the way to find him is you just find his house and knock on the door. So we've been pointed in a general direction. I think after we finish here, I'm going to try and find a second lunch because this is OTR and we're here for food. But then we're going to try and work our way towards the house of the boss. And like, we'll see what happens. But yeah, I can't believe we're in Mae Salong. This is crazy. Let me try the food. It's a really good stir-fried noodles. Try the duck, so I'm going to do that first before I even put any sauce on it. Okay, that's excellent. That is very similar to what you'd find all across China in Sichuan restaurants. That is tea smoked duck. Okay, that's fantastic, actually. I'm just savaging it with my fingers.
The idea that Mrs. Im and her husband moved here from Bangkok to start a restaurant might seem surprising, but it was not a random choice. At the time, the government was providing incentives to anyone working in hospitality to help build a tourist infrastructure, all part of an ambitious program to convince the hill tribes to start farming tea, that visitors would arrive and buy their products and they could finally give up growing opium. Now, I know that we're here to talk about the Lost Army, not the drug cartels, but you can't mention one without addressing the other. To explain how the stories start to intersect, we need to talk about how Mae Salong was founded, which wasn't actually that long after the 93rd Division disappeared into the Burmese jungle. On the other side of Southeast Asia, in 1954, the French pulled out of Vietnam, Laos, and Cambodia. And to keep these countries from too much democracy, the Chinese began funding communist uprisings. By the end of the decade, the Viet Minh and the Pathet Lao were gaining power, the Khmer Rouge not far behind. In Bangkok, the Thai government was terrified of this happening here, and with good reason. Militias were forming in the northern provinces, getting weapons from Mao Zedong and Ho Chi Minh and plotting to overthrow Thailand's monarchy. But luckily for the Thais, there was a whole division of soldiers who hated Mao, happened to be flush with American weapons, and really needed a home. So in 1961, the Lost Army was granted a piece of land, a place called Mae Salong, and commissioned into the Thai military as an anti-communist battalion. They would fill that role with distinction. Thailand would avoid the fate of its neighbors. But before long, the communists were not the biggest danger in the northern Thai mountains. By the early 1960s, there were rumblings of a massive surge in drug trafficking, opium flooding the cities of Southeast Asia, then heroin, then beyond Southeast Asia to everywhere, especially the United States. At first, the outside world blamed China, given the old reputation from the last century. But in 1971, the U.S. Assistant Secretary of State held a press conference and introduced the world to the Golden Triangle. The CIA had found evidence of a massive network hidden deep in the jungle. Opium farmed in Shan State, Burma, refined into heroin in Laos, then sent everywhere via Thailand. Across this region, militias were popping up. There were rumors of towns and then provinces run entirely by ruthless cartels, and the numbers kept on growing. By the 1980s, the black market of the Golden Triangle was estimated to be a top 10 economy in the entire world, generating more money than its 3 home countries combined. And that was a recipe for corruption, political chaos, and even more power for the criminals who ran the trade. In 1991, a single shipment of heroin sent from Chiang Rai via Bangkok to California was found with a street value of $7 billion in today's money. And that is why there was so much riding on the tea plantations and the success of this initiative. All of this is a long way of saying the Lost Army was never actually lost. Mae Salong was just hidden in the middle of 200,000 square kilometers of lawlessness.
All right, just to update you, we were following instructions towards the house of the village boss, which apparently is just right there. I guess it's completely okay just to knock on his door, but then it started looking like it was about to pour down rain, so we ducked into a restaurant. We just ate, like that's not a camera trick, we just finished eating like so recently that this is still warm, our takeout box. But we ducked into this restaurant, and this is the food that I remember from next to Suvarnabhumi, Khao Soi, braised pork over mustard greens, this kind of stuff. And I talked to the boss, and I'm not sure how comfortable he's going to be explaining it on camera, but he's grandson of 93rd Army. So this restaurant is actually owned by one of the descendants of the people who first settled Mae Salong. So that's super exciting. Yeah, this was completely by accident. We just got in from the rain, but we can handle a second straight lunch and a third straight lunch if it comes to it.
It's been more than 3 years since we started this channel. And if there's one thing we've learned, it's that the best meals are always the ones you don't plan, ducking into some random restaurant just to avoid the rain. I have no idea how it always works like this, but somehow it's a guarantee that what's coming is going to be incredible.
第一个最重要的是，我们这里有四五个东西。
是，
告诉我，我们点了什么？这是什么？
这个我们店里面这是云南扣肉云南扣肉，
这是 pork belly， 是猪肉那个猪肚，
没有那个猪
肋
3层肉，叫五花肉对不对？
五花肉对，是
五
这样
花肉，然后来里面是云南腌菜泡菜云南泡菜，这个在里边这个馒头知道
所以
对，
吃一起是吧？
对，这个跟这个一起吃
，OK，
然后真正跟猪脚这个猪脚，
这是应该 Mae Salong 那边，这是这次的，
这里的最有名的就是猪脚扣肉还有云南香肠
云南香肠你怎么知道怎么做？
云南香肠它的料是云南味道。云南人的味道因为这里本村这里村子全部是云南人，这个在冬天的时候才能做，里面有放碎肉，
所以这是干的是吧？干的
一年只能做一次，冬天要有那个露水，
因为冬天可以做，因为外面很冷，还是因为
要在白天要晒太阳。晚上要依靠露水来，
还有Khao Soi，
Khao Soi这个泰国的这个Khao Soi是鸡肉Khao Soi，用黄面这个黄面Khao Soi，鸡肉汤鸡肉汤，然后有放椰子汁椰子汁，这Khao Soi跟这个腌菜、柠檬、红葱。一起吃。
告诉我它的历史一点点。
历史我们在中国，中国好像是记得是第16军还是多少，然后跟国民党93师从云南、缅甸一直到美斯乐泰国这一边。
可是第一步是去 Burma。Shan State，
对，拍马好了之后呢，又到了泰国，到了泰国之后就分为3军跟5军，5军有段希文将军这里这个带领这边，然后那个3军呢是这边是3军3军那边是有李文焕将军那边清迈大部分在清迈那边，我们西贡段希文将军。在清莱这边，这里就属于泰国地方泰国国家是以前爸爸这个部队国民党现在属于孤军没有什么党了，现在是属于泰国人了来到这边以前也没有什么车路，也没有什么餐厅电火，什么都没有念书，我们念的是中文跟泰文。后来呢，爸爸93师部队帮我们泰国人去打仗，打仗之后我们就90皇就给了我们这个身份证，就变成泰国人那也这边也属于一个旅游景点。这边的气候，这个文化历史，还有这个欢迎大家到我们这边美斯乐来这个参观来玩这边还有很多华人华裔，很多少数民族，有7个少数民族在我们北部美斯乐这个地方欢迎大家来。
不好意思，我需要尝一点点。I'm just gonna have one little bite of the sausage. Well, I know we haven't I just have to try this. This is like.
它是云南的味道。
That is perfect. Okay, before we start, really quick, before I start voicing, I want you to do the same thing I just did. grab a piece of the sausage. I'm telling you, this makes me emotional. Like, you know how long it's been since I've had something that's done just like this? Yeah, guys, come join me. This is so good. Like, yeah, you haven't seen me this happy in a long time. Finding this restaurant in a way justified the trip to Mae Salong. We tracked down the food we were looking for and even met someone local who grew up here. But there are still a ton of missing pieces in the story, and the news wasn't all good. The owner's wife told us that the village boss, who's her relative, is in Taiwan and won't be back until the fall. So once again, we figured we'd just start walking around and maybe find one more lunch. But then plans changed. Okay, this is why I love this kind of impromptu trip without knowing what's going to happen. There are a couple, 2 or 3 surviving members of the 93rd Battalion who still are alive today. We're leaving the restaurant. The wife of the owner is in the van with us. She just contacted one of them, and we're on the way to his house to see if he's around to try to come in. I don't know what's going to happen next. Even if nothing happens, that was an amazing lunch. And again, like, we now have a new friend in our front passenger seat of the van. Yeah, let's just go with it. In 1949, the KMT's 93rd Division decided not to surrender and kept fighting against Mao Zedong. It's been 77 years since then, decades that saw the soldiers hunted in the Burmese jungle, allied with the CIA, fighting communists for Thailand and surrounded by the Golden Triangle, and somehow, apparently, we're about to meet someone who remembers all of it.
我39年在国内就当兵了，入伍了。那个时候这样嘛，共产党乱了后，我们读书不得读嘛。我14岁我就离开家乡了，就当兵了，知道吗？14岁就当兵了，但是我进到缅甸。缅甸知道吗？进到缅甸已经16岁了。16岁，跟着国军跑嘛，我们是小兵嘛。
Of the 10,000 soldiers who settled Mae Salong, only 3 or 4 are left. Zhang Delay is one of them, 93 years old and one of the last who can tell the story of the lost army.
因为那个时候。共产党、国民党，日本投降了以后，两党斗争嘛，打嘛，共产党、国民党那后内战嘛，国家内战，国民党输了，总统到台湾去了，国民政府移到台湾去，但是我们在云南这边。因为国军的时候呢，台北中央的命令叫到南海，到南海那后结果 共产党以后联标的部队到了，我们输了，国军输了以后，投的投降，打的打死，有一部分这个黎民的部下李国辉1000多人突围到了缅甸，又有26军李承晚的部下，有个营长带着800多进了缅甸。进了缅甸，他们那个时候泰国中华民国还有邦交嘛，他们要到泰国以后还是想到台湾去，但是然后联络不上，进了缅甸没有办法的时候呢，他们这个唐中的800多同李国辉的1000多合并起来，成立了一个指挥部，暂时在缅甸以后维持现状，要向这个中华民国台湾联络的这个他黎民到台湾去了嘛，到台湾去以后，蒋介石蒋总统就派黎民来联络李国辉是他的部下嘛，联络了以后就在缅甸就定下来了。定下来以后呢，还是想回中国去嘛，结果朝鲜战争嘛，朝鲜战争美国人跟这个共产党有点差不多了以后，有点打不过了以后，就来支持这个李国辉的部队，反攻这边牵制毛泽东，牵制共产党，牵制了以后反攻进去嘛，反攻进去了以后怎么我们输了以后又到缅甸来那里办反攻抗我大学，反攻抗我大学有逃难的人民军队合并起来，大约有5万人左右。所以缅甸政府告嘛，缅甸政府告美国，告台湾，所以台湾就逼迫我们的部队撤台，是第一次撤台。撤台，台湾那样美国人已经不管了，美国人不管我们了，不管我们以后呢，台湾方面就说老弱残废撤台，能够上战的还要留下一部分，结束了以后在缅甸以后活动要反攻回去嘛。结果第2次总部成立了以后我们有挖过2个机场嘛，在谋沙总部反攻抗我大学挖有个机场，第2次到黄金三角洲那后要蒙巴了嘛，又有第2次总部又扩了机场，所以发展起来以后，缅甸政府恐怖了，他们打不过我们了，所以就请这个解放军2个师化妆成缅军，化妆成他们的部队来攻打我们嘛。所以攻打我们呢，我们主要是我们要活命，要求生存嘛。所以我们不凭他们打了以后，我们的指挥部进了老国，剩下一部分台北政府说3个月就给你们补给了，知道吗？补给
我知道。
给钱了嘛，再给我们钱支持我们嘛。结果3个月到了，不但不给钱，通信也没有了，就不要我们了。不要我们了以后呢，这段将军怎么办呢？千军万马嘛，嘴巴要吃嘛， 所以没有办法嘛。所以在这泰国种山稻啊，知道吗？山稻，种谷啊，砍树，砍了以后烧火了以后豆子种下去。这样子以后呢，慢慢的会又有商人，他们这个商人以后做这个鸦片嘛，知道吗？鸦片。
我知道。
做鸦片以后，我们的部队就护送他们嘛，保护他们，他们给的护运费啊，过我们的防区呀，我们收一点税，这样呢，以后我们又有钱了，有钱这样子混下来了，究竟要怎么办呢？以后也不知道了，所以呢，泰国乱起来了，泰国有泰共产党起来了。所以起来以后，泰国人打森林战，他们不习惯嘛，他们只会打这个大的战争嘛，这种小战争他们不习惯，所以泰国政府就要我们帮忙他们打共产党，打了以后打平息了，就是皇帝呢就给我们公民权、居住权嘛。就是这样嘛。当时梅斯洛的时候一样都没有，就是大树嘛。有大树，有少数的黎所族种鸦片。他们种鸦片嘛，但是我们来了以后，他们跑了，我们就这样子摘下来了。摘下来。我们部队还是进爬满区嘛，我们的兵还是进爬满区，帮助生意人运鸦片到泰国。
The village of Mae Salong was right in the middle of the Golden Triangle drug trade, because the Golden Triangle drug trade was created in Mae Salong. To tell the story from the beginning, basically it all started back in Shan State, Burma, with the Lost Army still hiding and planning a return invasion of China. They needed three things: more soldiers, weapons, and money, at least enough to keep 10,000 people fed. The first they'd find from the Shan, the native people of the region. The Shan militia was preparing for its own war of independence against the Burmese, but they had no training or battle experience, so the KMT offered to help, building compounds and organizing companies. In exchange, the Shan agreed to fight alongside the 93rd should any need arise. As for weapons, well, that was organized through the Hui Muslims, descendants of the Silk Road and for centuries, notorious smugglers. The Hui, since their own expulsion from China, had built a black market network throughout the mountains of the region, visible since we are a food channel, through the spread of their famous dish, Khao Soi. More on that later. Anyway, the Hui arranged guns and ammunition from Thailand, and that left money, which would be solved by the hill tribes, the Akha, Lisu, Yao, Lahu, and Hmong, more specifically the crop they grew to barter for food, a flower called the poppy, and its resin, known as opium. All that was left was to find a buyer, and that would be resolved quickly. This is General Khao Soi Noi, the head of Thailand's national police and director of intelligence, the Thai equivalent of the CIA. Hearing about an increase in opium being smuggled out of Shan State, General Khao wanted a peace. He negotiated a deal for exclusivity, then used Thailand's military planes to fly the opium from Chiang Rai to Bangkok, then out of the country to customers further away. When that same military offered the KMT soldiers a home at Mae Salong, the Shan militias took over the Burmese side of the business, watching over the hill tribes and encouraging, some would say forcing them to grow more opium, and the 93rd Division would stay, quote, lost, unknown to the public, until they were long out of the drug trade, been granted Thai citizenship, lived as simple farmers, and allowed a Taiwanese writer to visit their quiet mountaintop village.
Now, there are two things to keep in mind when it comes to the 93rd Army, not to mention the Hui and the hill tribes. First of all, growing opium was legal, at least when all of this started. Under pressure from China, given the increase in smuggling, Thailand would officially ban the farming of the poppy in 1958, though this was not enforced. Laos didn't even go that far. There were no laws against its cultivation until the late 1980s. And while opium was outlawed in Burma in 1974, given the country's internal divisions, it remained legal in Shan State until 2005. And of course, second, this was a matter of survival. None of the groups involved in the beginning of the Golden Triangle were citizens. And while this story would get dark over the next few decades, in the beginning the intention was just to get by, and maybe find a way home.
你会中国还是一直你没有会云南？
共产党说改革以后，我们回过一次，
你回了一次，
回过一次。
你觉得什么？你觉得你看那个几年你会过去？什么时候你会？
我们回去那个时候嘛，那个政治完全还是不对嘛。
啊。
现在嘛不用讲了，他们好了。
可是你回云南，你觉得什么？就是那边是你的家，还是这里是你的家？
那我们也是自己生出来的地方呢，还是想嘛，想家还是中国嘛。老了还是想回去啊。
It took some time before the full story of the 93rd Division got back to Taiwan, and since then, it's been complicated. Those who left with the first wave are still seen as heroes, but the ones who were left behind, well, by now, they're kept at arm's length. By the 1990s, as the whole ordeal came to light, the volunteers stopped coming, and support dried up. But in its place, the Thai government and the initiative of growing tea instead of opium. And to this day, that is Mae Salong, a small tea community more or less forgotten by the outside world. So for the night, we booked ourselves into a tea farm homestay, and finally it's time to check in.
这就是
这个是桂花乌龙桂花茶，
哦，
好香哦，
好香，不知道怎么说，这是那个水果的那个味道。
对对，水果味道哦，花香水果。
So she has the tea that we're drinking apparently comes from here, tea farm. She processes it herself.
เก็บหอมมึงนี้มาให้หน่อย。
还有你说那个，
我叫他去采那个桂花，给一点点。
这一个哦，谢谢。这一个那个点，也卖你自己的茶。
我自己的全部我自己的。
你怎么谁教你怎么做？
以前我没有钱嘛，以前我很穷，我的台湾人来教做。我就去学嘛，去学就看到人家怎么做，我就来自己做啊，像炒菜一样啊，每一天都做就。
这是那个台湾的 NGO 还是台湾的工厂还是？
台湾人那个台湾人他来帮忙嘛，他就来教。
我明白，可是这是几年前大概的
40年了。
可是你没有40岁，
我60多了。
不是。Today, visiting Mae Salong is to arrive in a quiet Chinese village, a small settlement of tea plantations and humble restaurants. It's a place with an intensely complicated story, one that saw one fateful decision made all the way back in 1949 lead to an unimaginable ordeal. Decades of battling the elements and enemies on all sides, a descent into the world of drug smuggling and crime, 2 decades of service to a country not their own, and the path finally ending here, which wasn't supposed to be the plan. There's a sadness in the reality of Mae Salong, the Chinese village built to represent a memory, a stand-in for a place they gave up everything to fight for.
今年是26年，所以大概70年左右，那个Mae Salong是什么感觉？你小孩子的时候，那个
Mae Salong很困难呐，没有什么走路，没有车子，都走路赶马，马知道吗？马。
horse。
哦，我是赶马的，我会赶马的。以前我们家很多马，我们家很多。
你小孩子的时候，你爸爸、叔叔，那个旁边人，他们说那个93号跟你说，还是没有跟你说他们的那个？
没说。
没跟你说。
你明天你去看那边人，他们写的很多。明天去看上面他们有那个历史很多，你去看你去读就知道了。
可是他们没跟你说。
跟我说我也记不了了，我不想记
Man, this has been just one of the coolest days I can remember in a long time on the channel. Like, there's so many layers I need to kind of unpack about everything we've seen, and it's day one. Like, this could be its own video. Like, just I was talking to Daria a minute ago. I'm like, I feel like we woke up this morning in Chiang Rai and now we're just in a Chinese village in Yunnan. That by itself is fascinating enough. And then you think about the story of the 93rd, battalion. You think about the Golden Triangle, which is the whole reason for this trip in the first place. Yeah, what a day. And somehow it's going to get even crazier tomorrow when we go to the Burmese border in Mae Sai. But first things first, let's soak in the last few minutes of sunset. Let's eat some amazing home-cooked food that tastes like it's straight from the Yunnan mountains. Chicken with quince fruit, which is just mind-blowing. 2 dishes with la ro, so the pork belly cured with chili peppers and with bamboo and bamboo shoot. Stir-fried vegetable, pork foot, which is the signature dish of the region. And it sounded like I just banged a gong as I kicked the hot pot table. And all with a bun, a beer, some tea. Come eat. Good day, guys. By the time Bo Yang arrived in Mae Salong, the people here were farming tea, and long removed from any connection to the drug trade. But the Golden Triangle itself hadn't even hit its peak and wouldn't for another decade. So what happened between the settling of the village in 1961 and its discovery in 1982?
Well, for that part of the story, we need to go back to the very beginning, right when the Thai government invited the 93rd Division to come here and fight for the kingdom. Relocating to Mae Salong meant the KMT needed someone to stay behind in Shan State and watch over the farmers, and for that role they chose a man named Jiang Qifu, half Shan, half Chinese, the son of a KMT veteran. As the new opium boss in Burma, he took his job seriously, directing the hill tribes to increase their output and forming his own militia to enforce his orders. A militia that would grow to 100 men, then 1,000, then 20,000. By the middle of the 1960s, Jiang Qifu began to wonder if he needed the KMT at all. And in a brazen act of confidence, he organized his own deal, negotiating the sale of $5 million of opium to a buyer in Laos, General Uwan Ratakun, the head of the Laotian army. The KMT was tipped off to the betrayal, and from Mae Salong they sent their own force across the Mekong to intercept the shipment and send a message to anyone else who dared step out of line. On July 29, 1967, the two gangs would collide in northern Laos, squaring off for control of the opium trade. Both sides would lose. See, this was all a setup. General Ratakun had lured them into a trap, and with the KMT and the Shan State Army both in the same place on Laotian soil, he called in his air force and bombed the hell out of everyone. Then he stole the entire shipment and sent it off to his own secret factories, where he'd refined the opium into a drug called heroin. In the aftermath, Jiang Qifu would be sent to prison, the KMT would lose all power in the opium game, and the Lao military took over the Golden Triangle. But that's not the end of the story. The Kingdom of Laos would only last a few more years, falling to the communists in 1975. Seeing a chance to get revenge, Jiang Qifu ordered the kidnapping of 2 Russian doctors, then ransomed them in exchange for his freedom. He would rebuild his army, take on the new name Kun Sa, or the Prince of Prosperity, and begin solidifying control over the region, then the entire international drug trade. For the next 20 years, Kun Sa ruled the Golden Triangle as one of the world's most powerful and most ruthless cartel bosses. He built himself a compound deep in the mountains, but his business would be centered on the Thai-Burmese border, a global top 10 economy flowing through a town built half on each side, in Shan State known as Tachi Lek, and in Thailand, Mae Sai.
ถ้าเราจะเข้าพื้นที่สีแดงบ้านผาหมีนะครับเราต้องเข้าก่อน6 โมงเย็นเพราะว่าจะมีด่านเจ้าที่ของทหารนะครับเขาจะคอยตรวจตาความเรียบร้อยเพราะว่าเมื่อก่อนเป็นพื้นที่สีแดงมีการค้ายาขนยาเป็นพื้นที่ติดชายแดนระหว่างแม่สายกับพม่าครับก็คือถ้าจะให้ผมลงผมก็ต้องแลกบัตรประชาชนไว้แล้วก็บอกเจ้าที่ว่าเดี๋ยวไปส่งลูกค้าที่นี้แล้วก็ถึงจะทหารจะปล่อยขึ้นไปครับแล้วก็กลับลงมาเอาบัตรประชาชนได้ครับครับผม
There's something uniquely special about going on a road trip. The way a car or a van starts feeling like home, and how you get used to the little routines, like starting every day with a warning from the driver. But most of all, it's the fact that we don't have to be locked into any plans. If we see something cool, we can just pull over, like that coffee shop yesterday on the way to Mae Salong. Or here, because it turns out we're about to pass something legitimately wild. If you remember a few years back, there was that story that made international news about a bunch of kids from a football team who got stuck in a cave, flooded in deep underground when a monsoon hit. This was massive. I remember how crazy it was when they announced 9 days later that everyone was still alive. Then there was another week of trying to get them out, and the whole thing was so epic. It became a Hollywood movie, released in 2022. Anyway, that mountain we're passing, well, that's it. That's the cave.
All right, well, we're gonna do a quick detour. So we were driving north towards Mae Sai, and actually, if you remember that movie that came out a few years ago, or if you were following the story, the massive international news story about the children who were trapped in the cave in northern Thailand. Well, that's here. It's like the outskirts of Mae Sai, which, you know, it's so close to the main road. We were thinking about detouring just to say that we'd seen it, because, I mean, we're there. That's not the interesting part of this story. The interesting part of the story is our driver, Paeng, was one of the divers who went into the cave to lay the ropes and help rescue these kids. And apparently, like, that's what he does when he's not driving YouTube channels around. He was part of the crew that helped after the tsunami in Phuket. He dealt with a lot of the flooding that's happened at Mae Sai a couple of years back. But yeah, he was one of the guys, and he's actually in the movie. They filmed the movie on location here, and they asked his team, who were the actual rescuers, the first wave of rescuers, they asked them to be extras, basically playing themselves in the movie. This was not planned. None of us knew that this was coming until about 10 minutes ago. And yeah, so where we are right now is like, I actually recognize, we just went past kind of the entry point to the cave itself, and I recognize that from the movie. It was shot on location. So we are right now like about to get a quick guided tour of the cave site from one of the guys who was an actual rescuer. This is crazy. Here's the entrance.
I swear all we ever actually plan to do is film a food video. But it always seems like the story ends up taking us in another direction. And then every once in a while, even that other direction gets put on the back burner for a random side quest that none of us saw coming. And the only thing to do is just go with it.
อันนี้ก็จะเป็นเหมือนฐานเรื่องเล่าเนี่ยครับก็จะมีรูปภาพเข้าไปดูไหมพี่มา
I'm already nervous in this, and this is a man-made ceramic cave. Wait.
อันนี้ก็จะเป็นระบบโลฟนะครับระบบการเคลื่อนย้ายของระบบที่ทำกันเอาไว้ก็คือจะมีสลิงมีไกด์ไลน์มีระบบเซฟตี้มีเชือกมีคาราบินพวกนี้นะครับก็คือนอนเปมาเลยเพราะคนที่เดินนี้ค่อนข้างที่จะลำบากมีลื่นเราก็จะสไลด์เปแล้วก็ลากได้เลยครับเป็นระบบโลฟ ไปดูภาพวาดก่อนไหมแล้วค่อยออกมาถ่ายจากแฟนไหมครับได้ครับโอเค let's go picture
Holy shit, that's it right there.
ก่อนตรงนี้นี่จะเป็นศูนย์บัญชาการของกู้ภัยหน่วยงานปภกรมนคือทุกอย่างหน่วยงานราชการจะอยู่บริเวณนี้ช่วงนั้นนะครับยังเป็นดินเป็นไอ้นี่อยู่ค่อนข้างที่จะลำบากมากครับอันนี้ก็จะเป็นจักรยานจำลองของเด็กตอนที่เรามาเจอก็คือจักรยานจะจอดอยู่ตรงนี้ครับของเด็กครับตั้งแต่วันแรกที่ได้รับแจ้งตอนนั้นอยู่ที่สยามจุดแม่สายครับก็ได้นำกำลังเข้ามาตามที่อุทยานแจ้งว่าเจอจักรยานกับรอยเท้าเด็กซึ่งเดินเข้าไปข้างในก็ทีมผมก็ได้เดินเข้าไปสำรวจในถ้ำแล้วก็ได้ไปเจอ รองเท้าเด็ก ซึ่งนำออกมา แล้วทีเนี้ยเราก็เริ่มทำการค้นหา เราก็คิดว่าเด็กน่าจะมุดลงไปในถ้ำจุดนี้จุดที่อยู่โถง 3คิดว่าน่าเป็นจุดนี้ เราก็เลยขอทีมสนับสนุนเข้ามาพร้อมทั้งถังอากาศชุดดำน้ำงมกันอยู่นาน แต่ยังไม่เจอ3แยก ก็ได้ประสานขอทางอำเภอทางหน่วยงานปภ.เข้ามาเพราะว่าน้ำเริ่มเย็นเริ่มขึ้นฝนตกตลอดทั้งวันเลยครับ แล้วก็ทีเนี้ยพอเราเริ่มค้นหาแต่ว่าเรายังไม่เจอเด็กพอดีทางหน่วยซิลติดต่อมาว่าอยากจะเข้ามาร่วมโอเคผมก็เลยเป็นไกด์ให้ตั้งแต่นำทางหน่วยซิลเข้าไปแบกถังอากาศเข้าไปเป็นพานนำหน้าบอกทางชี้จุด3แยกทุกอย่างจนประสบความสำเร็จหน่วยเนวิซิล1คนที่รู้จักก็เขาจะเรียกผมว่าพานผมจะเรียกเขาอีกชื่อหนึ่งนี่จะรู้กันแล้วก็จนเขามุดโผล่ฝั่งพัทยาบีชได้แล้วก็ทำไกด์ไลน์ให้พวกเราที่นักดำน้ำตามไปสมทบได้ครับ เมื่อก่อนตรงนี้ก็ไม่เป็นทางเดินนะพี่จะเป็นดินอย่างนี้ก็ตัวใครตัวมันนะครับถ้าเกิดจะเอาถังลงจะแบกอุปกรณ์นะครับมันจะเป็นทางดินอย่างเงี้ยพี่ค่อนข้างที่จะลื่นชื้นแต่รับรองอากาศมีแน่นอนครับเพราะมันจะมีป่อง
คือตอนนั้นน้ำที่มันเข้ามาตรงเนี้ยมัน
ครับ
สูงกี่เมตร
มันมีระดับน้ำอยู่ตรงนู้นพี่ผมก็ไม่แน่ใจนะครับตอนนั้นว่ามันสูงกี่เมตรครับแต่ในถ้ำครับมันจะมีทั้งตะตุ่มมีหัวเข่ามีขนาดนี้มีนี้แล้วแต่ความต่ำความสูงของตัวถ้ำครับอันนี้ก็จะเป็นศูนย์บัญชาการย่อยของ Rescue หรือว่ากู้ภัยในจังหวัดเชียงรายหรือว่าในประเทศเลยก็ว่าได้ครับจะขนอุปกรณ์ขนขวดอากาศขนทุกอย่างมารวมไว้ตรงนี้เพื่อที่จะเข้าไปพื้นที่ชั้นในตรงนี้ก็จะมีน้ำครับน่าจะประมาณเนี้ยพี่เนี่ยนี่ครับข้างนอกนะเดินได้เลยครับเมื่อก่อนก็จะเป็นอย่างเนี้ยพี่อันเนี้ยก็เริ่มมาบูรณะเป็นบันไดมีราวเหล็กครับเมื่อก่อนเราต้องเดินไปในซอกอย่างนี้เนี่ยครับเดินปีนอย่างเงี้ยครับแล้วก็แบกถังอากาศด้วยอะไรด้วยก็ไปในนั้นเลยครับทั้งลื่นทั้งตกทั้งเจ็บระวังลื่นนะครับ
We're in the cave. This feels like something that's like a museum, but this is real. We're in the cave. This is borderline terrifying, but thankfully, at least, I trust that if something goes wrong, we have one of the only experienced guides in the world to get us out. Man, this is crazy.
ระวังหัวนะครับเนี่ยครับอันนี้ก็จะเป็นจุดสุดท้ายละเขาไม่ให้เขาแล้วก็จะมีประตูกั้นประตูชั้นนี้แล้วก็มีประตูระหว่างถ้ำเล็กๆนิดแค่นี้เองครับแล้วมีประตูแล้วก็เราต้องลอดเข้าครับจะมีอยู่จุดนู้น
Well, thank you for doing what you did, and thank you for showing this to us.
Yeah.
Man, if you're rolling audio, this is fucking terrifying. like with steps, with lights, with signs up like it's a museum, and with a guide who's one of the only living rescuers of the cave. This is still terrifying. I'm going to stick with food videos. My purpose is to eat a bunch of food. Man, thank goodness people like Pete Bang exist. After that terrifying detour, we can finally get back to our mission and the relative safety of Mae Sai. Relative. It's been quite a few years since Mae Sai has been bombed, attacked, or invaded, so we get to appreciate Thailand's outlaw city. The Wild West, or North, home to 30,000 people and twice that number here unofficially. Refugees, traders, smugglers, and gangsters who found their way to this side of the border. Mae Sai was not just metaphorically the center of the Golden Triangle. Let's just look at where we are. The road that ends at the border is Myanmar's Highway 4, better known as the Opium Road, cutting all the way through Shan State and then here connecting with Thailand's Highway 1, which keeps going as far as Bangkok. And even that doesn't scratch the surface. We are right in the dead center of the Asian Highway number 2, linking Bali all the way to the Middle East. All right, we've arrived in Mae Sai. So that right there, that blue building, Mae Sai, that blue building you can see at the end right behind me, that's the border. That's Shan State, Myanmar, right across that border. It's a little bit wet, but you can see the sun starting to poke through the clouds. There's a food market. We're gonna duck inside and find a bite to eat and just get our bearings. And then hopefully, if the weather cooperates, we're gonna have a walk around. It has the feeling of like, we've been on the ground for 1 minute. This feels like a border town. It feels like very frontier, you know, like this is not, we're not in Mae Salong anymore. But yeah, I'm excited. Let's get started. What do we have here? This looks like just pretty classic Thai noodle soup, yeah? Yeah, kway teow. So we have kway teow pork noodles, very Thai style. Let's go into the market. I'm looking for something Burmese. I want my lunch to be, I don't think we're gonna have to look very hard for it. You can also see the history. This market is, it's right up above me, 2474. What are we right now? That is 95 years old, that market that we're walking into. Yeah, 95 years old. The other crazy thing is that this only became the border. This only became the border crossing between Thailand and Myanmar when, like, England and the Thai king, I guess at the time it would have been Rama V, negotiated the actual physical borders. And then Mae Sai, which was just a small old Lan settlement, became the border crossing. So this market is 95 years old. This has really only been the border for 130 years. So this is probably like the whole story of the region. This gentleman here who has this shop, he might remember when this became the border. Hello, Khab. While Mae Sai was the main link for Golden Triangle trade, for the people of the town itself, there's another kind of commerce that's been vital for more than a century. It's a food market, specifically the primary source of ingredients for Thailand's Dai ethnic minority, or as they're more famously known, the Shan people. The population of Mae Sai is overwhelmingly Dai, born here or having fled from Shan State.
And this is the biggest Shan wet market on earth that isn't actually in Myanmar. Vendors who work at this market are almost entirely Shan natives, farmers and traders who cross the border every single day hauling bags of anything that Dai people might need on this side of the line. And that means anything.
These locusts? What are these? Locusts? Yeah. Is it cicadas? I recognize bags like that. These are going to be frogs. See which direction seems most promising for food. Kind of entering into the back of the market. I don't know. Let's just start walking. I'm going to aim this way first. It's a little wet for you. Let's go this way.
Wherever you are, the food around a market is usually the baseline stuff. The everyday meals and staples meant for the workers themselves, or the people who come to shop. Typically in Asia, that means simple stir-fries over rice or bowls of noodles. But for the Shan people, it's something unique, what's known as khao fun, an ancient signature dating back thousands of years where flour is mixed with a paste made from limestone, and then boiled, then left out overnight to firm up into something like jello. It's the only dish we keep seeing all around this market, so obviously we know what we're having for lunch.
จะเป็นข้าวฟืนขาวแบบน้ำข้าวฟืนขาวเราจะทำจากแป้งข้าวเจ้าใช่ค่ะแล้วเราก็อาจจะไปเคี่ยวแบบประมาณเป็นชั่วโมงแล้วก็เอาทิ้งไว้ประมาณค้างคืนนะคะมันจะเซตตัวถึงจะเซตตัวใช่อันนี้จะเป็นข้าวฟืนถั่วนี้จะทำมาจากถั่วลิสงค่ะอันนี้ก็จะวิธีทำก็จะประมาณเหมือนกันเอาไปเคี่ยวเหมือนกันแล้วก็เอาพักไว้ให้มันเย็นถึงจะเป็นก้อนนี้ได้ อันนี้เขาจะถ้าเขาจะเรียกว่าข้าวซอยน้อย2 ชั้นใช่เพราะว่าทำอีกชั้นหนึ่งแล้วก็ทำไปอีกชั้นนึงแล้วก็ไปนั่นแต่ว่าถ้าเป็นทางนี้ก็จะส่งเครื่องเนี่ยฮะ
อันนี้ใครสอนทำ
อันนี้แม่ค่ะนี่เป็นสูตรของแม่ใช่
So it's Thai dish from Shan State. So it's from Shan, from across the border. That's why we've never had it before. I am so excited to try this.
The Dai, or Shan people, have a reputation for being a tough bunch. But even knowing that going in, I am impressed with the bare hand grabbing a metal pan from a boiling hot steamer, without even pausing the conversation. Having spent a long time working in kitchens myself, I can tell you that this is probably a sign we're in for a really good lunch.
What? That looks so good.
So it has, you saw my face when this was being prepared. I was looking since we came to Mae Sai, I was looking for a version of this, the karamphun, which is the dish that everybody says you come here, you gotta try. We saw it at the market this morning in Mae Salong. Like, I just haven't had it yet. It is rice, you know, it's strips of rice. As you see, with all this stuff, we're supposed to mix it up. We're gonna throw some yellow bean fritters on top of it. You notice I'm talking very fast. There's a really special thing I'm about to get to in this. This one is basically peanut tofu. You dip it into this sauce that's this amazing mixture of all this stuff. That's what we ordered. That's what we came here to try. Khao Soi Noi is something, you know, we're walking around, we see people selling it at the market, don't really know what it is. It looks really simple from what I knew, but I don't know Khao Soi Noi. It's not a Thai dish. It's not anything that I've ever been acquainted with before, and I feel like the first 4 decades of my life might have been wasted not knowing what this is. The boss of this amazing establishment that we saw and popped into, she told us that we really, really, really needed to try this. It's her specialty. She learned the recipe from her mom. She's Thai Lu, and there's Thai Lu and Thai Yai, which is Shan Burma, you know, people who, this is an endemic dish. For them, she calls it Thai Yai pizza. I am like, you saw how this was made. This is just blowing my mind, and I want to try everything, but I have to start with this. I'm gonna use my spoon to just cut a little piece of this off. Sorry guys, I'm cracking into the little part with the egg here. I'm gonna do my best to leave you. If we have to order another one, oh no, we'll order another one. Gosh, it's been such a, Carol, you getting this from on top, this egg? Look at the runny egg. Oh my gosh, I'm gonna just scoop some of that onto, like, when's the last time on the channel that you saw me look as completely just mind blown by anything as when this was being made? I don't remember the last time that I was anywhere and saw a dish that I didn't know the category existed. Let's try this. Yeah, okay, we'll just order a second one. I'll just have this myself. Wow. First taste you get is chili. You get peanuts, you get garlic, you get, you know, those kind of earthy components after the heat. And then it finishes with this like soft, really interesting flavor. There's some acidity. I know there's the pickled chilies in there. I'm trying to explain a dish that I didn't know existed until 5 minutes ago. So take everything I'm saying with a grain of salt. Yeah, wow. Goodness me, what a meal that I did not see coming. We're all just hesitating to take the last bite of each one. We're like trying to be polite to the other ones. You're just going for it. We were trying to be polite. Okay, wow. Check me up. I'll pay, please. Please make sure we pay for everything. Do we have to? Is this too good not to pay? Please, 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 please. I insist.
The first record of the Dai people in what's now Shan State, Myanmar, comes from ancient Indian traders almost 2,000 years ago. They wrote of a vast mountain kingdom that they named the Siam, which would become the root of the word Shan, and Assam in northeast India, and Siam as in the original name of Thailand. The Dai, or Shan, have a story that goes far beyond their current home region. As a matter of fact, their language would evolve into modern Thai and Lao. Their traditions give us stuff like the water-splashing festival of Songkran. Yet somehow finding their cuisine today isn't easy, except in just a few remote outposts, like Mae Sai. To try to explain very quickly, we need to start a long time ago in China's Yangtze Basin, when a group called the Baiwit got pushed out by the rise of the Han. Some would head south, the ancestors of today's Cantonese. Another faction would flee across the water into Taiwan, becoming the Austronesians who would go on to settle pretty much all of the Pacific Islands. And then there was a group that headed into the Himalayan foothills. We call them the Dai. Anyway, by the last millennium BC, the Dai were a large kingdom in today's Yunnan province and Shan State. And they would thrive until the 13th century when the Mongol army invaded, devastated the region, and an estimated 1 million Dai fled south into what's now Vietnam, Laos, and Thailand. Over time, these splinter factions would interact with other cultures and develop in a lot of different ways. But in Shan State, it was different. Their old traditions never faded in a highland region that would be their own for the next 700 years. Now, I'm going to jump ahead because we have another lunch to get to, but this is why we bring this up. Fast forward to 1947, and the Shan Kingdoms, along with other mountain polities, are all part of the British colony of Burma, a loose federation of a lot of different cultures held together by British weapons. But the British are weak, still recovering from World War II, and a Burmese general named Aung San had an idea. He convinced the leaders of every ethnic enclave to band together long enough to win a war. Then they could all go on their way. A constitution was written declaring the start of a new country and guaranteeing Shan State and the other minority regions independence after a period of 10 years. But then Aung San was assassinated, the new government tore up the constitution, and the Burmese army invaded the provinces to shut down any talk of independence. That was 1948. It's been almost 80 years, and that civil war is still ongoing. To show you how bad the situation is right now, as we tape this video, that border is not controlled by the country of Myanmar. At this moment, it's manned by a paramilitary group called the United Wa State Army. As much as we would love nothing more than to cross that bridge and shoot in Tachi Lek, it's not an option. Number one, it's a war zone. And number two, we're banned from entry. Nearly all of Shan State is closed to foreigners without special permission. Basically, what I'm saying is that the reason authentic Dai food is so hard to find is that most Dai people live in Shan State, and Shan State is on fire. But for us, it also means that this is a rare opportunity, and that brings us to our next meal, at a place said to be the very best Dai Khao Fun restaurant anywhere outside Burma. There's a connection between Dai communities inside Shan State and along the borders. Auntie Paeng was born in Sichuan-Banat, the Dai ancestral homeland, fleeing when her village got caught up in a war. It took her a year to make it through Shan State, and somehow, far away, 2 countries removed, the food was the same, or at least close enough for her version to win over the locals. Today, this place is an institution, now in the hands of the next generation.
มาคนเดียวตั้งแต่อายุ17หนีมาหนีสงครามสมัยก่อนเนาะหนีสงครามอะไรอะอุมนิตเหรออุมนิตเนาะหนีสงครามมาอายุ17แล้วก็ไม่กลับเลยอยู่นี่นะเป็นสู้รบกันเนาะเขาก็หนีมาก็มาจากเจียงตุงลูกเจียงตุงก็ข้ามมานอนที่เมืองพะยากแล้วก็ข้ามมาแม่สายเลยเจ้าลำบากมากลมนี่ขี้คนเป็นแอลเลยตอนมาลำบากมากเดินทางไม่มีรถสมัยก่อนนะ
ตอนมาถึงแม่สายนี่เป็นยังไง
เป็นมาอยู่กับญาติแล้วเปิดก่อนเนี่ยน้ำบาเปิดเขาได้ลูกจ้างย้ายก็ไปอยู่กับเปิ้ล อยู่กับเหมือนญาติกันนะเพิ่นก็ทำข้าวฟื้นอย่างเงี้ยไม่ได้ก็ย่าขายย้ายก็ช่วยเพิ่นก็จนมากคนเท่าบ่ขายก็เฮาขายเลยเจ้าอันนี้เป็นข้าวฟื้นก้อนอันนี้เป็นน้ำสูเปรี้ยวหวานอันนี้จะเป็นเปรี้ยวหวานกินเป็นน้ำค่ะและอันนี้เป็นซุปถั่วเนาะเขาก็จะเรียกซุปถั่วไอ้คนไทยใหญ่ก็ข้าวฟื้นอุ่น
This is in Myanmar called tofu noi.
โทฟูนวยโทฟูนวยนี่พม่าเลย
Okay.
ไอ้คนจีนนี่ซีโตเพิ่นนะ
Sidofen. Yeah, sidofen. That's right, the soft tofu. Sidofen. Okay, so
อันนี้
this
น้ำ
is
เงี้ยวนี่ก็สูตรเจียงตุงน้ำเงี้ยวข้าวซอยน้ำเงี้ยวสูตรเจียงตุง
So this also has a Chinese equivalent from Yunnan. That's blowing my mind right now. Okay, this one is very famous with nam
อันนี้
nyo.
ข้าวกันจิ้นอันนี้ใส่หนังใส่เลือดค่ะอันนี้ก็ทำเองอันนี้ข้าวฟื้นทอดไม่มีแป้งนะถั่วลันเตาค่ะอันนี้เป็นสีเหลืองสีม่วงอันนี้ก็เป็นถั่วลันเตาอันนี้เป็นถั่วลิสงและอันนี้เป็นข้าวตัวนี้ค่ะสีขาวนะ
So these are made from rice. This is made from peanut. What are these made from?
อันนี้จะเป็นข้าวสีขาวเป็นข้าวเจ้าแข็งเนาะอันนี้จะมีปูนขาวนิดหน่อยค่ะแต่อันนี้เป็นถั่วลันเตาเนี่ยนี่ไม่มีอะไรเลยนะแต่ใส่ข้าวมิ้นนิดหน่อยถ้าไม่ใส่ก็ไม่มีสีเนาะมันไม่สวยอันนี้เป็นถั่วลิสงทำมาจากถั่วลิสงแล้วก็ใส่ข้าวสีดำนิดนึงไรเบอรี่ค่ะ
Okay, let's eat. Thank you very much. Okay, kapun mahab. Thank you, chef. Ooh, wow. Totally different from what I expected from the version that's more common at least Bangkok, Myanmar restaurants. That's sweeter. This is more savory, garlicky, delicious. Okay, wow, that's not what I expected at all. But I feel like I keep saying that. I'm gonna stop. Why don't you guys just leave the cameras rolling, come join me. Let's eat. We're not here again tomorrow. So while we're in town, let's just eat and enjoy the meal, yeah? If you want to understand what this food is, I'm the wrong guy to ask anyway. So just come here, try it, enjoy it. Wow. If you want to know the whole story of the Dai people, you can start with Khao Fun, something that dates all the way back to the Waiwit culture, and we know that because we can follow this dish as it spread with the diaspora. The group that moved into Guangdong would make theirs with the more available tapioca starch, eventually adding in a traditional medicine called mesona, giving us what we call grass jelly. The Austronesians would take Khao Fun across the oceans where it would become the ancestor of chendol, or at least the main component. And as the Dai moved towards the Shan Mountains, we can follow the trail with Liangfen, beloved in central and northern China since the years of the Song dynasty. The history of the Dai people is ancient, fascinating, and preserved pretty much only in Shan State, which is why it was so devastating when the Burmese government annexed Shan into Myanmar and sent in the army to subjugate the province. The end of the 1940s for the Shan people was tragic. Their language was outlawed, any practice of Shan traditions was seen as an act of rebellion, and punishments were severe. One of the oldest and most impactful cultures anywhere in Asia was on the verge of being erased. And then, all of a sudden, 12,000 soldiers from the Kuomintang appeared in the Shan Mountains and changed the course of history. When the KMT soldiers arrived in Shan, they formed an alliance with the native people. The deal was simple. The 93rd Division would be allowed to make a home,
to build a compound and plan their return to China, and in exchange, they would train the Shan militias and share weapons when there was enough to spare. That was it. The Dai had no interest in drug smuggling. They had enough drama as it was. So each side left each other more or less alone until 1962, when Zhang Qifu was put in charge of the Shan plantations. Now, even though he was still in his 20s, Zhang Qifu had a sense of how to be something of a chameleon. His dad was Chinese, a KMT veteran, so he earned the trust of the 93rd Division. But his mom was from Shan, ethnic Dai, so at home he branded himself as a freedom fighter, a soldier of Shan independence. This was how he recruited his army, the eventual 20,000 men fighting in his name. They didn't sign up to be cartel enforcers. They were Shan nationalists, and Zhang Qifu, or Kun Sa, convinced them that drugs were just a means to an end. The more he could control the international opium trade, the more money he could bring to Shan State. After all, money meant weapons, and weapons meant survival. During the 7 years Kun Sa spent in prison, after the failed venture in Laos, his support at home never wavered, because he was going to deliver a Shan country, or so his followers believed. And after his release, his rise would be meteoric. By the middle of the 1980s, Kun Sa's Muang Thai army was the single biggest rebel division in the Burmese Civil War, and he personally oversaw the supply of 80% of the planet's opium and 9/10 of all the refined heroin. But this brought outside attention, and as he and his cartel grew in infamy, the two sides of Kun Sa, the Kingpin and the revolutionary, could no longer coexist, and greed won out. As the Thais, Americans, and Australians put out rewards for Kun Sa, he found new partners in the Chinese triads, the gangs of Hong Kong and Macau, which took over much of his operation. This meant his army was now working for groups who cared nothing about Shan independence, and tensions started to grow. The farmers and refiners became subject to extreme exploitation. The Dai homeland was turning into a narco-terrorist state, and worse yet, rumors spread that Kun Sa was secretly allying with the Burmese government, sliding payments to his supposed enemies to leave his empire alone. Rival factions started to appear, his army splintered, and finally in 1996, Kun Sa made a deal. He agreed to step down, but instead of facing trial, he was allowed to retire to Yangon, provided with a lavish estate for himself and his mistresses, and his son was given authority over Tachi Lek, opening a casino which is still the main draw on that side of the border. The fall of Kun Sa did not stop the illegal drug trade in Shan State. The war was still ongoing, and the militia still needed money and weapons. The only change was that now, instead of one man pulling the strings, there were 100 smaller gangs and the government itself, which in the last few years allegedly became the biggest player in the region, using opium, methamphetamine, and scam centers to evade international sanctions. In other words, whatever's left of the Golden Triangle now funds both sides of the Burmese Civil War. And for the Dai people of Shan State, well, that's basically the story, and the reality of life just across that border.
It's wild. So where we are right now, we're actually past the Thailand border checkpoint. We're kind of in no man's land, but the market on the Thai side goes past the border. That's the entrance to Myanmar right there, across just that little narrow bit of river, which is like, the Civil War is still very much like ongoing over there. It's like there were attacks in that city, Tachilak, not that long ago, and it's not considered safe. And I was just thinking about the people who are coming and going across this border, how lucky they are to be on this side, how lucky we are, to be on this side. That we have a lot of stories like this, but my neighbor has a domestic worker who was trying to bring her husband from Shan State, and it took months, and we were following her updates. He would trying to work his way through the mountains to avoid all the government attacks and things like that, and lose signal for days, and she wouldn't have heard from him, and finally made it into safety, crossed into Thailand. And it's pretty heavy when you think about where we're standing and how unattainable it is to so many people who are just a little bit further over there. Anyway, this is the entry point to Thailand coming from Shan State, and it's time for us to go check into our hotel. Isn't it crazy how a person's entire life can be dictated by the good luck of being born somewhere, instead of somewhere else just a few steps away? For the Dai people who moved south in the 13th century, those who settled right there, north of the Sai River, well, today it's civil war, drug cartels, and the shadow of Khao Soi. Meanwhile, here on the opposite bank, we can walk around filming a food video. 2 courses of history decided by a line drawn on a map, a single stroke of a pen, dictating the fate of millions of people 100 years later. Today, the mountains around Mae Sai are what's considered a red zone. Maybe not at war, but so rife with smuggling and human trafficking there's a 6 p.m. curfew, so we need to head out early towards our hotel, directly on the border. As we drove, Bang told us to keep an eye out for cornfields. Apparently that's the new technique used by criminals. They'll buy property right along here and plant enough corn to provide cover, literally and figuratively, selling the crop at markets while secret passageways allow anything to travel in and out. Eventually it'll get raided, the cornfields burned, but by then there's always more, over and over. And it won't stop as long as Shan State still needs the Golden Triangle, just to survive. As we start the last day of our road trip, it's easy to look back on all the incredible stuff that's happened so far. The people and the cuisine and the unexpected surprises. There's only one disappointment, and that's the fact that we never ended up finding that Akha meal way back in Mae Salong. But that is a wrong that's easy enough to rectify thanks to driver Bang, who knew about a restaurant close to our hotel serving honest-to-goodness Akha cuisine. A perfect breakfast for our final morning. No karaoke required. Ozone Restaurant has one of the coolest concepts I've ever seen anywhere. The workers are basically just the people from the nearby Akha settlement, and every cook makes exactly one specialty. One menu item that they brought themselves from their own family traditions. So we pretty much just ordered everything. Maybe an ambitious breakfast, but I mean, this is a food trip.
เมนูแรกนี้ครับจะเป็นตัวผัดหมูรากชูนะครับตัวเอาหมู3ชั้นมาผัดกับรากชูครับทุกเมนูเนี่ยครับจะไม่ใส่ซีอิ๊วรสดีน้ำมันหอยครับจะใส่ตัวรากชูในการชูรสนะครับเป็นวัตถุดิบหลักเลยนะครับแล้วก็อันนี้จะเป็นต้มเผือกใส่ผักกาดนะครับคือจะเป็นน้ำแกงที่แบบเหมือนแกงจืดเนี่ยครับแล้วก็ตัวนี้ก็จะเป็นตัวปลานึ่ง12ปนาเป็นปลานิลนะครับจะมีน้ำพริกมีกระเทียมมีเกลืออะไรอย่างเงี้ยครับแล้วก็เป็นนี่คือเซตน้ำพริกนะครับน้ำพริกนี่จะเป็นน้ำพริกถั่วดินกับน้ำพริกรากชูนะครับจะมีน้ำพริก2อย่างใน1เซตนะครับแล้วก็จะมีพวกผักแล้วก็อันนี้คือตำอาลูครับมันฝรั่งครับเอามาตำแล้วก็มาทอดอีกทีนะครับแล้วก็ตัวนี้คือจะเป็นผัดผักกูดนะครับสำหรับแบบ เมนูเจก็ได้ครับไม่มีหมูอย่างเงี้ยครับคนไม่กินหมูก็กินได้ครับเพราะว่าเป็นผัดผักกูดเจครับอาคาหอนยืดจำหมอหน้าก็พามีโอโซนไปจาร้านยาเมเดก็อาคาอัติมาอาคาโลและอาคาจ้าอัติมาอาคาโลจนฮันเลบิจามาครับผม
Okay, thank you very much. The cool thing about hill tribe food is that we are so used to having these things that let us cover tastes. Add some, season it with something, throw in some spices, throw in some MSG, throw in anything. And what's really cool about coming high up into the mountains and trying stuff like this is that it's no additives, it's just the ingredients themselves. This is taro, it's some kind of leafy greens, garlic, ginger. That might be it. In water, obviously boiled into a soup. And it is like, I don't know, there's something really special about trying something that just tastes like itself. Enough delay. Mashed potatoes. Well, all right, add one more regret to our list. I wish we had another day so we could throw ourselves into the cuisine of the hill tribes. This is crazy, another complete culinary revelation that deserves its own deep dive, as do the people themselves, the Akha, the Lisu, the Hmong, Lahu, and Yao. It seems like here in the deepest corner of the mountains, every single door opens another gateway to some completely unfamiliar world. And while I would love nothing more than to follow another detour, we have places to be, and one more leg of our road trip. Today our destination is just a half-hour drive away, our GPS pinned to a village called Sop Ruak on the banks of the Mekong. Like our other two stops, a long time ago, Sop Ruak was in the middle of everything, where the KMT crossed the river to challenge Khun Sa, and where boats ferried opium to the Laotian refineries. But today there are no warnings from Driver Bung, because Sop Ruak by now has become the most quintessential of all classic Thai institutions, a tourist attraction. In the late 90s, when opium here had been all but eradicated, the people in the mountains were doing okay, growing tea, then coffee and fruits like lychees. But the old Mekong smugglers needed work too. So to keep them on the straight and narrow, the government came up with another way to bring in revenue. And thus was born a surprising idea: to rebrand the Golden Triangle into a single physical location, the Disney World of the drug trade, a place for photo ops, river cruises, and to hammer home the point, not one but two complete and exceedingly well done opium museums, with exhibits on everything about the story of the poppy, 3,000 years of lurid detail minus a little gap from 1960 to 1990 because nothing much happened during that time, I'm sure. It's a pretty impressive achievement for Thailand to have so decisively won the battle against opium that the country can spike the football, maybe rewrite a little bit of history, and monetize the Golden Triangle as an attraction. After all, compared to the nightmare still unfolding in Burma, why not show off the country's incredible success? The intersection between the nations of the Golden Triangle is a study in contrast, a showcase of the divergent paths taken by Thailand, Myanmar, and Laos. Actually, come to think of it, whatever happened to Laos? Okay, so we were just driving through the farmland, like almost lulled to sleep by just the scenery, very few buildings.
rural northern Thailand, and then in front of us, all of a sudden around a corner, there's the Mekong River, and behind it, this just gigantic development of new-looking, skyscrapers. That is the new Golden Triangle Special Economic Zone. Those are Chinese casinos, those are hotels, and all the illicit activity that once sort of defined this area allegedly is now concentrated there. We don't know, I've never been in there. It's a lot of rumors, but yeah, that's kind of no man's land. It's not really belonging to any government. Crazy, the scale of it when you see it coming around the corner and just out of the blue, all of a sudden there's just like this city rising from nothing.
All right, maybe I didn't tell the whole story. We're not just going to Sop Ruok to take some Instagram photos. We are driving right towards the single most notorious address on the entire planet, and right on cue. Our cell phone stopped working. The signal apparently jammed for miles in every direction. To get to the last part of our story, we need to go back once again. Not to the KMT, but to the last time we mentioned the country of Laos. In 1975, when General Ratikun and the rest of the government was thrown out of power, and Khun Sa took control of the drug trade, moving everything into Shan State. Since he'd been double-crossed by the Laotians, Khun Sa was in no mood for cooperation. And anyway, for the Pathet Lao, that was okay. They decided to make a clean break. For the next decade, Laos was out of the Golden Triangle. But the problem was there wasn't really a backup. As a landlocked country ravaged by civil war without resources or infrastructure, things got bad. So bad that people started wondering if maybe the communists had been the wrong choice. The currency collapsed, starvation was rampant, so to hold on to authority, the Pathet Lao decided maybe they could give this opium thing one more try. New fields were planted, not in secret, but as a government project. Heroin production became a state-owned enterprise, out in the open. And this went about as well as you'd probably think it would. It was a catastrophe. The whole world treated Laos as a pariah. Everyone was threatening to invade, so after just a few years, Laos backed down and torched the opium farmland. But this also torched the economy, and things went right back to being desperate. And that is where Jiao Wei enters the story. Jiao was born in the northeast of China in 1952. We don't know much about his early life other than he grew up poor, got a job working in lumber, and then around 1990 moved to Macau and started making money in gaming. Jiao did well in Macau's casinos, but he had bigger ambitions, so in 2001, he packed up and struck out on his own, setting up a new operation in, of course, Shan State, Myanmar, where he would stay for the next 5 years, becoming massively wealthy. But in the midst of all the chaos in that country, he decided to move on one more time and made an offer to the government of Laos. Knowing the Laotians needed cash, he would sign a deal for the shockingly low sum of $850,000, getting in exchange a 99-year lease on a swath of land along the Mekong, 100 square kilometers of jungle, giving Laos a 20% stake in his new venture. But this was no ordinary real estate transaction. Jiao's property would be what's called a Special Economic Zone, or SEZ, outside of the authority of Laos or any other country. Whatever happened inside would be subject only to Jiao himself. No international laws could be enforced, and even Laotian officials could not enter without his permission. Jiao could employ his own police force, set up his own immigration checkpoints, and if it wasn't clear what he had in mind, he gave it the name the Golden Triangle Special Economic Zone. Since then, things have gotten strange. Photos taken by gamblers visiting his casinos show an entire city, completely out of place in the surrounding countryside. There are rumors of human trafficking on a massive scale, entire subdivisions of scam centers, crypto schemes, prostitution, exotic animal trading, and most of all, drugs, heroin and methamphetamine. It is alleged, not proven, that most of the drugs now manufactured in Shan State are funneled into the Special Economic Zone for worldwide distribution, and in exchange money goes back to Shan militias, especially the United Wa State Army, which somehow always has top-of-the-line missiles and rockets straight from the Chinese military, and their own land is now entirely in the hands of illegal Chinese mining, priceless rare earth minerals dug up on Shan State soil, exploited by China, in the process polluting the Mekong so badly that today the river is becoming a wasteland. All of it, the money, drugs, weapons, everything, allegedly flowing through a one-man nation state under the leadership of the newest Golden Triangle Kingpin. And that brings us to our destination for the morning, the fun little tourist village of Sop Ruak. So just to quickly explain where we are so you understand what you're seeing, the actual Golden Triangle as a physical location is about, 10 meters in front of me, just off the land into the water. That peninsula right there, that little thing jutting out, is the end of Myanmar. All the land behind it is Myanmar. On that side, this is the Mekong River. On that side of the Mekong is Laos, and our feet are on the ground in Thailand at the moment. Yeah, welcome to the Golden Triangle. Well, after a long road trip, we have arrived at the literal intersection of Asia's underworld, past, present, and future. So I'm going to quickly show you. Carol's filming, don't worry about that, you keep going. Over here, it's probably a better view from this side. That is the buildings over there, all the way to kind of right here. That is the new Golden Triangle Special Economic Zone. So those are casinos and a whole bunch of other stuff that we don't really know or talk about. It's probably the most controversial land, at least in Southeast Asia, if not in the entire world right now, in terms of what is alleged to be going on in there. But really, can you be more obvious with a euphemistic name than calling it the new Golden Triangle Special Economic Zone? It's completely unregulated except for the actual people who are in charge of it, because it doesn't belong to Laos. It officially doesn't belong to China, although Chinese RMB is the currency that's used and Chinese is the language that's spoken. And it certainly doesn't belong to Thailand, even though we could, pretty much swim across the water and be in there. But yeah, again, it's a fallacy to pretend like the whole complication of this part of the world is in the past. It's still an extremely complicated area, and it's not just because of the civil war in Myanmar. It's the fact that a lot of people made a lot of money for a really long time from this part of Southeast Asia, and those profits are hard to give up. The three countries of the Golden Triangle, meeting in just this one location, are all bonded by a dark chapter in history, each beginning from the same place and following their own track over the next 7 decades. There's Thailand, the home today of tea plantations and opium museums. Shan State, Myanmar, still torn apart by a civil war financed on both sides by the drug trade. And Laos trying over and over to turn the page, but drawn back in by a simple truth of economics. Everything costs money. If there's one takeaway from a visit to the Golden Triangle, it's that nothing happens in a vacuum. Are there people to blame for the drug epidemic, the tragedy wrought by these mountains? Yes, of course, there was and is plenty of greed. Greed for money and power. The power to raise armies and play at emperor. But far more than that, the Golden Triangle is the product of 1,000 years of everything. Invasions and rebellions, failed battles and political turmoil, and a whole lot of people just trying to survive. As we make our way back towards Chiang Rai, the signal came back on our cell phones and the road became a highway, soon enough fading into the outskirts of a city. Like all of this was normal, just an easy 1-hour drive into a world we take for granted, but one that's always been out of reach for the people in the highlands, the men and women still fighting for survival in a place unlike anywhere else. A land of brutality and hope, triumph and tragedy, a region that for better or worse has marked its place in history. The notorious and fascinating Golden Triangle.
All right. So we have a huge topic that we're going to try and cover in this video. But somehow, if we can explain it in a dish, it's khao soi. This is a melting pot of a dish. Noodles that are from China, probably brought to Southeast Asia, Thailand, Myanmar, Laos, all in different variations from Yunnan province through Muslim traders who used to run the Silk Road and set up the network that would become the Golden Triangle. And we don't know that for sure. That's the best anthropological assumption that anybody can make. But if there's any way to find proof, it's at this restaurant, the oldest khao soi shop probably in the entire world since 1929, third generation, still open here in Chiang Rai, the capital of the Golden Triangle region in northern Thailand, and our first breakfast of the road trip.
All right, remember that map we threw on screen a couple hours back showing Khao Soi and the Golden Triangle? Well, before we wrap up, I should probably explain. The truth is, Khao Soi actually played a major role in how we planned this video shoot. When we were trying to figure out how to follow the trail of the Lost Army, the secret ended up being the simple question of why this Thai curry soup was on a Chinese menu way back at Suvarnabhumi. Now, I'll make this fast, but let's talk about Khao Soi. It is Thai, but it actually comes from a group called the Chinha, the Thai name for the Hui Muslims. Now, that much is well known, but what isn't is why it exists at all, since the Hui come from China and there is no Chinese equivalent of Khao Soi. So let's start with that. Basically, remember how the Hui were the runners of the Golden Triangle, following their own smuggling corridors. Well, that and Khao Soi both got their start in the 1870s, when the Hui had to flee from Yunnan, massacred by the Qing dynasty after a long rebellion. At first, the Hui arrived in Shan State, where they introduced the locals to their cuisine. Not Khao Soi, but a different noodle dish made of beef. The local Dai people adapted their own style, incorporating native stuff like coconut milk and lemongrass and calling it Khao Soi, literally noodles in the Shan language, a name accepted by the Hui to describe this new version of the dish. Anyway, soon enough, the British invaded Shan State and the Hui headed south, bringing Khao Soi into Thailand, where it would take on new flavors and a new name, kind of, Khao Soi becoming Khao Soi. But before the Hui could truly settle in, they were on the move again, evicted by the Thai government during World War II when all Chinese were forced to leave the northern provinces. Some would go to Laos, bringing the name Khao Soi but not the dish, and others headed back into Burma just in time to meet up with some new refugees from China. Thrown out of 3 countries in barely half a century, the Hui were by now used to living on the margins, surviving by smuggling goods across borders. Their network would become the backbone of the Golden Triangle, and we can literally trace every step of it through the spread of Khao Soi. Anyway, with all that turmoil, the outside world didn't discover Khao Soi until the 2000s, today the trendiest dish in modern Thai cuisine. In fact, on the entire planet, only one Khao Soi shop survives dating back to before World War II. And of course, that's this one, right in the middle of Chiang Rai, the first capital of the Golden Triangle.
When I was a child, I had to live separately from my father because my father, he's not Thai, he's Chinese. And at that time there was the Second World War. They have to immigrate back to Myanmar. So I had to live with my mom. My mom, she was born in Thailand. So she is Thai. So I had to live with her. And when I was about 15 years old, my father came back to Thailand again, and we stayed together. And he started to run this business after my grandfather. เพราะสมัยก่อนนี่นะครับผมจำได้ผมเป็นเด็กนะเขาทำข้าวซอยเนี่ยเราไม่มีแก๊สเราชาโคนี่ก็ไม่ใช่เราใช้กะลามะพร้าวใช้กะลามะพร้าวเพราะไฟมันแรงไงมันฟู่เลยไงนะ แล้วก็เส้นนี่เราไม่ได้ใช้แบบนี้ เราไม่ใช่ทำเส้นแบบนี้เป็นแบบสปาเกตตี้ไงเราใช้หมี่สดเลยไงนะลวกชามต่อชามชามต่อชามเนี่ยคนมันไม่เยอะเนาะก็พอทำกันไปอย่างนั้นอ่ะครับแล้วแต่ก่อนที่เราจะมีสมมติเราจะมีเนื้อเนาะไก่ก็หายากหน่อยนะจะเป็นเนื้อไปเยอะ Before when I was a child I couldn't learn about Chinese because it's against the law เพราะสมัยก่อนนี่รู้สึกสมัยคุณอะไรนะน่ะเรามี Chinese School at Mae Salong ใช่ไหมแต่ผิดกฎหมายนะเนี่ยเราเลยไปเรียนไม่ได้ไงแล้วพอผมจะไปเรียนอยู่พม่าผมจะไปเรียนที่เชียงตุงไงไปเรียนโรงเรียนมิชชันนารีก็เนวินปฏิวัติไงก็เลยต้องกลับมาเรียนที่เมืองไทยอย่างเดิม
When Kun Waiwit and his father came back to Chiang Rai, it was 1962, 1 year after Mae Salong was settled, and just as their fellow Hui refugees were laying the groundwork for the Golden Triangle. There is a universe in which this family could have followed a very different track. But luckily for us, their business is Khao Soi.
At that time, the next crossroad is I don't know how to call it, the same as the house for opium. If you like to smoke opium, you can go there. You can buy there, can smoke there. Because my uncle, he would like to go there. The next crossroad, when I was a child, I went there. It smelled good. It smelled good.
Whatever the origins are of Khao Soi, it's probably something that tasted like this. It's thinner than I expected compared to what you find in, I actually have a spoon already, in the Bangkok variations where it's become almost gritty, light, coconutty, intensely refreshing. We organized a van to pick us up, and I've been seeing these vans all over the city, and I just realized I was thinking like a little minivan. Well, I have a feeling we got a tour bus. We'll find out. Subscribe to the channel for more from OTR. Thank you so much to everyone who supports us on Patreon. It really helps to keep us going. Find links below to our Patreon and social media, and we'll see you soon.